Operator Syndrome, episode 33. Looking a little bit different here. You'll see that I don't have my partner in crime, Steve, with me this time. He's off traveling. So I'm going to do a couple episodes um, just on my own. So forgive the slight change in format. I'm going to do my best because I certainly feel like I'm a crazy person talking in my basement to myself, which I am. But we wanted to continue with the cadence of content that we've got. I'm going to pick back up with my timeline, my personal timeline, service in the Ranger Regiment, and I had a particular story that I've alluded to before um, that I figured might be good to sort of tell on my own until we can get Steve back. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm pretty sure it's going to be 2 episodes, so let's just go ahead and go with that. Um, so you'll just hear me tell this story. Won't have Steve's comment and his feedback, but maybe we'll pick that up in a later episode. Not sure how we're going to approach that, but you'll get the benefit of hearing it, I guess. So first thing is a disclaimer. As always, I'm doing my best to remember these. This particular story happened in 2007. As I'm telling this, it's 2022. So it was a while ago. I've lived a lot of life since then. So I'm going to do my best to recall things for you as truthfully as I can. If there are things that I'm not quite sure, I'll say it. If there are things that I think I may, if there are things that I may have heard from others, I'll try to specify that too. But I just want to, lay it out for you as accurately as possible because the truth is crazy enough most of the time. It doesn't need embellishment. So I'll just try to go with that. Okay. So this particular mission, and this is just one mission I'm going to be talking about. It's everyone's got a mission that sticks out to them. One that is maybe the most interesting. Everyone's got a unique mission in mind for any such category, but this one falls under the most interesting. I do have other stories, and we'll get to those, but not in as much great detail. This one was just a unique set of circumstances and a series of events that I know for me and for those that I've talked to that were there with me. Um, this one sort of sticks out for us. So this is during that second deployment to Afghanistan. This is late 2007, specifically in August, or excuse me, October of 2007. I remember the time because early October is a big deal for Rangers, especially for those in 375. Um, October of 1993 was the Somalia Task Force Ranger, the Black Hawk Down incident, as most of you would know it as. So for us and for Third Ranger Battalion, that's also around the time when we were founded. Our battalion was founded that time of the year, not in 1993. So that stuck out to me. I always remembered that. So this was in the early days of October of that year. In terms of the mission itself, I don't remember anything in the pre-briefs that stuck out as unique. I do know that our platoon was going out with enablers. Enablers, for those who don't know, are folks who are supporting the raid, who are not necessarily rangers. In this case, we have they had different acronyms, but I'll just say we had, I believe they were civil affairs attachments. We had I'll say law enforcement attachments, and that might sound interesting. I know I've heard other folks in other podcasts be more specific about those programs. I won't, just because I don't know that much about them. I just know that they were tagging along. But I'll just say that we had federal law enforcement attachments with us on this mission. My squad was the squad I was in, not my squad, but the squad I was in was tasked with second assault. So first assault would be the main ones going into the target objective. Second assault, us, we'd be inner cordon. Then you'd have blocking positions by our weapons squad, and so on and so forth. So that's what we were looking at going into this mission. Um, we loaded out just like we had. I think by that time we'd gone on a handful, less than 5 missions up into this one. So this was very early on in this deployment still. Um, we loaded up. I believe that since we were second assault and we expected walls, we were bringing ladders. So I believe that I was carrying a ladder in addition to an assault ladder in addition to my usual. Isn't that cool? Isn't that funny how you say assault ladder and then it instantly becomes like 10 times cooler? It's just a ladder. So I think I was carrying a ladder and just my rifle. I had a breaching tool on my back. Pretty simple, pretty standard. Some water, that's about it. So very standard loadout. That'll be important later. So we go off board the bird. I think we were almost always, it was a two ship formation, CH or MH 47s from the 160th, Night Stalkers, best pilots out there. Everyone has said it. It's true. So it's a two ship. We go out to wherever the target is. Back in those days, like it seemed like every flight was minimum like hour and a half. It was nuts. We were flying all over the place. So we're flying, we're loaded in there, we're packed into these birds. There were enough of us in there that I remember that we didn't have the seats down on the side. So everyone was sitting on the floor of the aircraft, um, sitting in each other's laps in like three rows facing aft towards the ramp of the Chinook. Um, and that's also that's also an important detail. So we're flying, do what we do. As we're flying, um, for the most part, you get to zone out. Some of the key leaders, they'll be plugged into the comms on the bird, and they'll be listening to updates about the objective as we're flying in. At the time, I was a team leader, an assault team leader. So, not one of those, key leaders. I wasn't the ground force commander, not the platoon sergeant, anything like that. So I could pretty much just zone out, just sit there, maybe even catch a few Z's. I don't remember if I slept on this mission. So, um, we're flying in, there's a countdown procedure. So as you're getting closer to the objective, there'll be calls that start going out that you pass along to everyone. I can't remember what the calls are, um, but let's say there's a 10-minute call. I don't think there's a 10-minute call, but let's say there's a 10-minute call. That's about the time when you might wake each other up. So you start pushing everyone, say, hey, wake up. Once you get down into like the single digits, they're it's actually pretty prescriptive the way the Rangers do it. Believe it or not. You would believe it if you've listened to this podcast before. But at certain time hacks, as we're about to deplane or get off the helicopter, there's specific things we do. I don't know if this is the correct time hack, but like let's say at 3 minutes, you'll check your nods. You'll put your nods down. You'll turn them on. Make sure that they're good to go. You might flip them back up, keep them down. I don't know. At a certain point, you check radios, all that kind of stuff. Very prescriptive. So we're working through this countdown as we're coming in. Um, here's where here's where the details get fuzzy. It had to have been a two ship formation because they always fly that way, but we were really packed in here. So what I believe happened is the LZ where we were the landing zone where we were coming into was small enough where the two birds had to cycle in, and that means that they had to take turns coming in. um, Again, this is what I believe. I don't know this for 100%, but it would fit the details. So I believe my bird was the second one to come in. So we're orbiting the landing zone, and I think that's also to provide cover for that first bird that goes in. So it goes in, it lands, it drops off its guys, I believe, it cycles out. The problem in Afghanistan were the brownouts. So as a bird comes in, it kicks up a bunch of dust, shit, dirt, all kinds of things. And it creates like this thick cloud that people can't see through. So I believe what happened was first bird cycled in, dropped off the people in there, took off. My bird went to go in. As my bird's going in, I remember at this point that I'm on a knee. We're still snap linked into the floor. We have these. we don't have seatbelts on these helicopters, so we have these tethers that are connected to belts, these rigging belts that we have, riggers belts that have a big snap link D-ring that we snap into the floor with, and that keeps us in the bird. So if the bird were to go, spin uncontrollably, we wouldn't just fly out of the back. So I'm snapped into the floor. I got my hand on the D ring. My other hand's on my weapon, or holding this ladder that I think that I'm carrying for this mission. Um, we're coming in, and when if you do this enough, there are certain sounds that you're used to hearing as you come into land, and certain feelings that you're used to feeling. So the bird comes in, you feel it flare, so you feel the nose go up sharply. You feel the deceleration. You feel like your change in you feel the change in like your center of gravity as the helicopter's moving around. There's like a specific there's a sequence of whines, like sounds, like whines that the engines make. And the is it propellers? Man, I'm sorry, aviators. I don't remember helicopter blades, the blades that the blades are making. There's even a sound that they're making. um, I remember I was by a window, so I'm looking out like this bubble window on the 47, and I just see brown. It's just brown. Can't see outside. I can't see the objective area. And what I remember is that it felt like we were in this brownout for a long time. Again, we'd done this so many times. I was used to kind of the sequence and the timing of how these guys landed the birds. And that's one thing. They're so good that there's even consistency to how they land. So that's how spoiled we are. Those of us who get to work with the 160th. There's even like a timing. And I remember feeling like, oh shit, something's weird. Something's off. Something doesn't feel right. And we're in this brownout, and I can feel my center of gravity shifting. I can feel it moving around in ways that are not normal for a normal landing. And it feels and it just doesn't feel right. And um, I'm looking out the window, I'm looking out back towards the ramp, I'm just getting ready to go. And then boom, the next thing I know, I'm on my back. I'm on my back just that quickly. I'm looking out the window. I'm looking out of the back of the ramp. Boom, I'm on my back. Just instantly, I'm on my back. Um, I'm on my back, and I hear the engines whining in a way that I hadn't heard them before. And I see, not only am I on my back, but someone's on top of me. Someone's on top of me. Everyone's laying down inside the bird. Um, and 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 I remember people starting to pick themselves up, and the ramp is down, and you can see the guys towards the ramp starting to run off. So so you're just like, okay, that was weird. We're running off the bird. I feel like I remember hearing groans inside, um, inside the bird. I don't remember, I don't know if the violence of, by the way, some context. So, the aviators would call that a hard landing. Those of us inside as passengers would use common sense and call that a crash. Like it certainly felt like a crash to me. Um, I will call it a crash. Our platoon called it a crash. That's what we did. But I think technically the aviators would describe that as a hard landing. Essentially what had happened was, I believe that, whether it was the cycling of the birds that created a brownout that was difficult to deal with, or if it was just, or if they were coming into their own LZ and the dust was just especially bad this time, and they had some trouble navigating it. Um, the pilots needed to do what they needed to do, and I think they dumped that collective to get the bird on the ground, and maybe it was a little bit higher than they expected. So that's the context about what happened. Um, but so back to me. So I don't think that I went unconscious. I don't think. If I did, it would have been a very short time. But who know? I don't know. Um, I just know that I'm looking out, and the next thing I know, like my reality is all different. Now I'm looking straight up, and everyone's all discombobulated. So guys are piling off the bird. I grab my equipment. I unsnap. I come off the bird. Um, I come off usually when we come off the bird, we come out and we do like a half moon circle, pulling security out. I remember that as I'm coming off the bird, some folks are moving a little slower than others. I'm okay. I'm feeling okay. I take a knee, I look back, the bird's sitting there. The bird looks okay to me. Everything looks fine. Um, but I do see one guy hobbling off, like limping off of the bird, and so he's hobbling off. The bird's still sitting there though, so he's hobbling off, and I hear some folks talking, and I hear that guy who's hobbling off. He's like, "Hey, Sergeant, I'm fucked up." And there's some talking back and forth, and then um, his team leader, presumably, or the squad leader, somebody said, "Hey, get back on there." So that guy had broken his leg, so he hobbles back onto the bird. The bird's sitting there a lot longer than any of us want it to be there. I know the air crew don't want to be on the ground that long, and we don't want them because they want to be flying where they're safer, and we don't want them on the ground that long because it just brings more attention to us. So I remember feeling like, okay, these guys got to go. As long as they can fly it, they need to go. And so they police up that guy, maybe one other guy. I don't remember, but then the bird takes off. So seeing that guy hobble off the ramp and hearing what he said, I was like, okay, we might have a few people that are jacked up. I was feeling fine. My team was fine. Our squad was good to go, and that was my world at the time. So I was like, okay, let's move on. We need to move on. Um, but definitely that first part, that infill, was a little bit of, you know, wasn't as managed as well as we would have liked it to, and that factors in later on. Um, so we go to the objective. I don't remember much of a walk, so I think we were pretty close. I don't think we landed on the X right on top of it. I think we landed on the Y, which is offset just a little bit, by a few hundred meters or so. Um, and so I remember getting to the target, and we were second assault, so the BP's set up, the blocking position set up, faced out. Second assault, we came in, got on our ladders. I remember the walls being shorter than we expected, so I don't know that we actually even got on them, or if we did, we just barely needed the ladders, um, which sucks when you have to carry them. So that's just something that you're like, okay, we didn't even need these ladders, but so I remember setting up for the inner cordon. The first assault went in. They cleared it. I don't think they found anyone. No shooting, no gunfight, just pretty simple. Here's where one of those disclaimers goes. What I remember is being on the wall, watching the objective, watching the village that this was going down in, and I remember seeing the air assets that we had above us, supporting us, highlighting something. Um, there's technology available that could display to us where something of interest was, and I just remember sitting on the wall, and the aircraft would be highlighting something, spotlighting something, we'll say, um, like relatively close to us, and then a little bit more time would go on, and the thing that they're tracking is a little bit further away and further away and further away, and I'm just thinking to myself like, dang, are we gonna have to go after that? So my guess is that in our disorganized infill, whoever was in the building left. I don't remember getting anybody out of that building. Um, Another note is I think we found military equipment in this building too. Um, so I don't re- I vaguely remember there being like camouflage folks saying, again, I didn't go in on the assault, the internal clearing, but I feel like it was called out like, hey, we've got some military equipment, some camo, um, some weapons, nods. Even for some reason, nods sticks out to me, night vision, and so this piqued our interest. So the combination of, okay, maybe this there could have been a bad guy in this objective. Like we may have actually got him, found him, found out where he was bedding down, and the combination of that and the fact that they were tracking someone leaving the objective area who presumably came out of that building, we were like, okay, now the conversation is like, okay, we're going after this guy. So, um, and hearing that there's military equipment there, that changes things. I mean, you expect it, but especially when you heard nods. Again, this is 2007. Like we, the United States, we were the ones we owned the night because we had this technology. So when we would hear that the people we're facing could potentially have it, that changes things because the way we used equipment back then in our and to our benefit, those are not way you couldn't do the things we like to do all the time if your enemy had nods and could see the same things. So something that caught our attention. So um, the first assault had some dudes who were banged up from that hard landing. So as second assault, we got tasked to chase down this guy, and I can't remember one. I think it was two, but um, let's say this guy got tasked to chase down this guy. So they're like, "Hey, we need to grab this guy." I don't know whose call it was. I don't know if it was the ground force commander or someone important sitting in a joint operations center somewhere, air conditioned and comfortable. But they said, "Hey, got it. You guys have some casualties from the infill. We want this. We really need to get this guy, anyways." And that's not always the case. You know, sometimes bad dudes get away. We have the benefit of technology to where, if someone really, the term we use, highly technical term we use is squirter. So they squirt from the objective, they leave the objective, right? So if they leave the objective and they're far enough away that we can't hoof it and catch them, well, we have the benefit of like some of the orbiting aircraft that can just follow the guy and we can get them the next time. We don't have to do this, but we've got casualties. We've got, I believe the count is, I think we had two broken legs just from the infill, two broken legs, like four broken ankles. So I think we've got six guys in the strike force that have some issues. They're dealing with issues in their mobility. But someone makes the call. We need to get this guy. So we're like, all right, my squad, the squad I'm in is the most intact. So, and we're second assault anyways. So we're the ones sent to go chase him down. So it's in the squad there are two teams, two team leaders. The senior team leader, he leads out, and then my team is following him in trail, and we're leading the rest of the strike force and trying to track this guy down. Um, Again, if you've ever carried ladders to a raid, you'll love this. I got to pass off the ladders to the other squad. Awesome. So now we're traveling light, nimble. We're gonna go chase down these guys. The terrain is mountainous, obviously, so definitely dusty, brown, but mountainous. The mountains in this area, no trees, just rocks, just giant boulders and gravel and shale, just rocks, just very rocky. Um, so we're chasing this guy. And by the way, so when we'd landed, it wasn't too, let's say local time, let's say it was like 11 midnight. Like it was, pretty early on in the cycle of dark. So we did our hit and it's pretty much empty. So that goes pretty clear. So it's still relatively early in the night when we go start chasing after this guy. So again, what we're really doing is following the the um, the spotlighting. That's the term. The spotlighting that the aircraft overhead is giving us. So we're definitely trying to catch up to this guy. So we're not too concerned with security along the way. We're more concerned with catching up to him. Um, you know, this dude is hopped up on adrenaline. He heard the strike force come in. He heard the all the commotion. He bolted. He's scared for his life. Wouldn't you? Right? And he had time. And we had to make up that time. So we're really moving out to try to catch up to this guy. Um, he's not wearing body armor. He's not wearing plates. He doesn't have helmets and rifles and breaching tools and all this. We do. So we're really expending a lot of energy trying to catch up to this guy. And the terrain is just insane. And by the way, there was no illume. There was like zero there was like zero moonlight. So there wasn't any natural illumination, and our nods, and at the time we were in PVS 14s, just like the single tube nod. Um, without a loom, they were nearly useless. Um, and we're just crawling over up and down these boulders here and there, and it was pretty tough. Um, I remember at one point I'm walking along, we're climbing up, and I'm walking, and I step off basically like into the abyss, and I just fall onto my side. Like just stepped and there was nothing there in front of me and just fall. Um it was so dark, I couldn't estimate the fall. I think when I went to get up, like, maybe I had to, like, put my arm out like this to push myself back up to get back up to where I had been. So, if it were daytime and I saw that and I just did, like, a quick jump down, it wouldn't have been a big deal. But because it was night and because I didn't see it and because I just rea that could have been off a cliff, you know? You never know. So that was scary. Um, but it's we're chasing these guys down. We're huffing, we're puffing. Um, they keep moving out. We're not really closing the distance, and that goes on basically all night. All night we're chasing these guys. We're sucking down all our water. Remember, I told you like we were kitted up just for like a regular assault. In the best case scenario or the ideal state, we would have landed, gotten off the bird way quicker, you know, hit the objective, got our guy, jumped back on the birds, you know, in and out, in and out in an hour, right? Or less. And now here we are. We are hours and hours into chasing this guy who'd come out of that objective area. So, and sucking down all our water, sweating. Um, uh, so daybreak comes and daybreak comes and thankfully, finally, the guy we were chasing, he stopped moving. So we could see the aircraft highlighting an area that was just standing still. We're like, thank God, finally. And of course, it stops on like one of the biggest one of the biggest hills, I guess I'll call it, ridges that's out there. And we're like, okay, he's stopped. He's stopping. He's held up. Um, I don't remember what calls came out. The aircraft can see more than we can. They were like, "Hey, I see something. He might have something." But what I do know is they did call out that he was in like a cave. So we're like, "Okay, he's in a cave. Usually, good things don't happen in caves. Um, people like to hide things in caves. Lord knows what this guy has." So we come up to this hill and we can see about the area where this cave is. We can't see into it, but we can look up and we can kind of see where it is. And we know he's hiding out there. So squad leader comes up with this hasty plan. We're gonna do like this sort of like pincher like flanking maneuver. So um the first team is gonna come basically we're gonna do like a top down clear almost. That was the plan. So first team's gonna go up. I'm gonna take my team. We're gonna go up around and then down and then clear down. Um, so we go to execute that, and this thing is high, and my team has to go even higher because we're trying to create this like enveloping movement, this flanking movement. So we're climbing up, and it is tough. We're at some kind of altitude, I don't know, but even on top of that, we're doing like killer like stair steps climbing up this thing. And like I said, it's just boulders and gravel, shale, whatever. Like it's tough. And one of my guys is really hurting. He's like long since out of water. Um, he's huffing and puffing. He wasn't that long out of ranger school, right? So he wasn't at like his peak physical condition. Unfortunately, that's what we do. So he's huffing and puffing. We get to the top where we're about. My team gets up to the top. We're about to make that turn, headed down the mountain now, and he's like hyperventilating. So I have to pause and I have to call out like, "Hey, we need 2 seconds to catch our breath before we go down." Because we don't know what's going on there. We're assuming that he's held up in there. He's got He's got like guns, maybe he's got explosives. I don't know, but I don't want to be out of breath when we cross the threshold when we get into this guy's view. So I said, "Hey, I need 2 minutes, 2 minutes for my team to like collect ourselves here." So we're hooking up. The guy on our team. We're hooking him up with water. We're saying like, "All right, catch your breath, calm down. Here we go." We do like a quick powwow. Say, "Okay, hey, there's like the top of the cave that this guy's in. Keep your eye out, spread out. Let's go down. Be careful." So we start going downhill now, which is way better. But now it's scary because we're convinced that we're gonna shoot it out with whoever this guy is in the uh, in the cave. So he we're climbing down, and that's a unique feeling, right? Again, large boulders, so you can't like you're not a ninja climbing down these hills. So we're making noise. There's rocks rolling down, telegraphing our movement that we're coming down. Um, we're going down. The other team gets there first. They get a good vantage point, and they're able to call this guy out. So I hear over the radio as my team's sort of delicately picking our way down this mountain, this gravel mountain. We get the call that, and we can see that, hey, the first team got him, pulled him out. We're good to go. So I'm like, okay, great. We're gonna live today. So we get down the mountain a little bit more relaxed, link up, see the guy. He's per usual. He's malnourished man, um, 30s, 40s, something like that. Grown man, um, wearing basically nothing. He definitely had an AK, and I remember he had a shopping bag with some rounds in it. And that was pretty much it. For those who don't know, who haven't been to Afghanistan, it's very interesting. They really, they don't have much in some places. They don't have much, so they'll really like stretch the lifespan of a shopping bag, like a plastic shopping bag you'd get from a store. And so this guy kept his round, so he had like I guess like a little cache inside his little cave, which was his AK, and then um, plastic grocery store bag full of ammo. And one thing I remember was, some of it was linked. It didn't even make sense. So he had some individual AK rounds, and then he had some linked rounds. I was just like, okay, this is a little disappointing, honestly. So we picked this guy up. We're the heroes. We caught the guy. We caught up with him, and we start to head out. Now it's daytime, so by the time we actually get eyes on this guy, as my team was at the top of the mountain, it was full. It was daytime, fully light outside. We're getting together. We're placing him up. We're catching our breath. We're high fiving each other, um, taking pictures. Uh, Back then, like we had like disposable cameras. That was still a thing, and so like the squad leader is like pretty stoked like that we caught this guy. So I'm staring at the back wall of this squad picture we took with the AK, and we got his shit, and we're looking proud. So so yeah, so we're feeling good about ourselves. We link up with the rest of the platoon. So we're headed. So yeah, so we link up with the rest of the platoon. We're still in this high ground area. So we're like basically on like a ridge. So the mountain that we're on sort of connects to this ridge, and there's a valley down to like our left, and straight in front of us, and then going by to our left is maybe like a stream, some kind of stream. And again, it's like mountainous, very gravelly, no trees, just big, huge boulders everywhere. So I remember the platoon's at a halt on the top of this ridge, um, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do because this is not what we do. We don't like sticking around until daylight isn't really our thing. We prefer to be in and out in a very short amount of time. So when you stay till daylight, there are consequences for that. So in our case, we had to remain over day. We call it ROD, remain over day. We do that because we don't want to put the helicopters and the air crew at risk. They're great pilots, they're fantastic, but they fly these very large. like matte black helicopters in and out of these mountain passes areas. And as we've seen before during the war and then after my time, like you can, if someone knows what they're doing, they can knock one out of the sky. So when it comes to daybreak, if you are, if there's a relatively high threat of that happening, and if if the platoon can, cover down somewhere and stay relatively safe, then that's just something we choose to do. So the call was made, "Hey, we're going to remain over a day." So we're like, "Oh man!" So we're chasing these dudes up and down these mountains all night, hours and hours and hours, all night. We're chasing this guy. We caught him, great, but it's like, damn. So now we got to wait all day to get back. So we're at the top of this ridge, and we're starting to talk through what we're gonna do. Um, where we're gonna go. So in that valley that's off down to the left, there's like you could see some sort of agriculture going on, some sort of like planned human, you know, um, uh, farming is going on. Something's going on down there, something organized, and then you see this compound down in this valley. So someone makes the call, not someone, whoever is in charge, ground force commander, platoon sergeant, those people, PL. They say, "Hey, we're gonna rod in that compound during the day, and then we're gonna fly out in the next period of darkness." So we go down to so yeah, so we need to So we need to go. We're on the top of the ridge. We need to go down towards the stream and then back over towards the valley. So I remember as we're walking on this ridge, I remember seeing these rock formations. In my memories, they're arrows. I don't know that they could have been circles, they could have been something, but it was clearly man-made stone things going on. But what I remember them as arrows, but I think they definitely did show some kind of like forward motion. That's how I interpreted it. So I remember thinking like, oh, that's interesting. These rocks are telling us to go in the same direction that we're going. I just thought that was interesting. So we go down, we get down towards a stream, hang a left, we're in the valley. As we're doing that, another squad was in front of us. Another squad was in front of us for this long train now. The assault force of, I'm not going to say a number, whatever our assault force is. We're kind of stretched out, good discipline. It's the middle of the day. You don't bunch up as close. Now you got to spread out. Now your enemy can see you. So we're kind of stretched out over a good amount of distance as we're making our way towards this compound. Um, and the first squad in front of us sees this guy in front of that orchard, and he's like waving us down. He's like waving at us. And I remember hearing the calls over the radio. They're like, "What's this guy doing?" It's just a guy by himself, just down there at the mouth of this valley, waving us over, right? So, and that's strange. And so he's waving us down. Call goes out for that first squad to detain him. So they detain him. They bring up the interpreter. They're talking to him. They tell us to keep pushing forward because we need to get into that compound so we have a defensible space. So we're walking. So now we're deep in the valley on both sides. We've got on both sides of this valley. It's maybe, and it's hard for me to judge distance, maybe a foot, maybe a football field and a half to two football fields across. And then it's a really long valley. And then you've got these high hills on both sides, like a fishbowl. Um, and so we're walking there, and I see that the agriculture, the farming that's going on, it's an orchard. So, um, so we're walking, and we're in the lead now. It goes the first team in my squad leader, and it's my team. There's this low wall. There's this low wall that outlines where the beginning of this orchard. And it's like I always thought it was apricots. I don't know what an apricot tree looks like, or if it even grows on trees. But it was some kind of orchard like that, small, thin trees. First team goes over, slides over the wall. I remember I I kind of like lift my leg over, lift my other leg over this low stone wall, and I'm just about to enter the orchard, and I hear this sound behind me, and it's like I don't remember the sound, but I remember what I saw. And unfortunately, I'm gonna pause this episode here. But I hear this sound behind me, and I turn around and I see something, and uh, well, I'll tell you what I see. I look back and I see this column of black and white smoke behind me, and I'm trying to process that. And that's where I'm gonna have to pause this thing. So, yeah, I'll do one more of these. I'll finish up the story in the next one, I promise. And then we'll get Steve back in here, so it's not just me talking to myself. So appreciate you listening. Appreciate you suffering through that. We'll catch you in the next one.